Hey, welcome to Feed Yourself Well, and we're still on holiday sides, so we're going to solve the mystery and the big debate between cornbread dressing and bread stuffing. We're going to do a classic Southern sausage and sage cornbread dressing, and then we're going to put a spin on traditional bread stuffing with a buttery brioche that's been toasted, and we're going to add apples and pecans to it. They're going to share some ingredients. They're going to share, of course, our aromatics. We've got about 4 cups of diced onions, 2 cups of green bell pepper, and about 2 cups of diced celery. All these things we're going to sweat together, and then I'm going to divide them back out to put in each dish. The cornbread dressing is going to get a little bit of melted butter and some eggs and chicken broth, and the bread dressing will get the apples and the pecans and toss it all in the chicken stock, and then they're both are going to bake simultaneously. So we're going to head back and start cooking our aromatics first. Alright, so I pan fried some sausage in here that's going into the cornbread dressing. Just a little bit of residue, but it's got some flavor in there. I added a little bit additional oil, just about a tablespoon or 2 of vegetable oil in, and I'm going to add to this my onions. And I'm going to put in all 4 cups. Again, I don't want them to brown. I just want to sweat and soften. All right, make a hole in the middle and go in with green bell pepper. And lastly, our celery, and this is again our Trinity. We use this a lot. Brings a lot of flavor to the party, and it's always our cooking base. Celery in. Okay, so we're going to sweat this out for about 10 minutes just so we get everything nice and soft. You want to stir it, keep things moving because you don't want it to start to pick up any color. Remember, we're not caramelizing or browning here. We're just sweating the vegetables out. So we'll let those cook for 10 minutes and we'll come back and check on them. Okay, so our vegetables are right where we want them. Nice and soft, still got some color going, but cooking down nicely. At this point, I'm going to season them, and I'm seasoning them for both dishes, not just one. First thing going in is going to be seasoned salt, all-purpose seasoned salt. About 2 teaspoons of that, and about 2 teaspoons of Creole seasoning. Okay, we got that in. We'll give it a stir. And we're going to head back over and start building our dressings. All right. So we got our vegetables sauteed and ready to go into each of these dishes. But I'm going to go ahead and add the herbs now. We added the spices while they were cooking. If you add them while they're cooking, they're going to release more flavor in the fat that they were sauteed in. So it's actually going to enhance the flavor of the spices by adding it there. Here, we're going to add the herbs because we want the herb flavor to come out while it's actually finishing in the oven. So I'm going to start with the cornbread dressing. And I've got fresh sage. This has just been finely chopped. Fresh sage, and I'm going to go in with a nice heaping tablespoon and a half. Okay, I'm also going to add to that a teaspoon of marjoram. Marjoram is one of those flavors that you don't notice it often, but when it's there, it definitely bring something to the party. A little different from oregano, not quite as pungent, but mild and adds its own dimension. For the bread dressing, or bread stuffing, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of herbes de Provence. This is a herb blend of some lavender, rosemary, thyme, all that's in there. So 2 of those go in. I'm going to toss to combine and let that rest. This one we'll get to in just a minute. Now I'm going to add the cooked crumbled sausage. That goes right in. Got that. And I'm going to toss it. I want everything coming together nicely. And I'm also going to add half a stick of melted butter to the cornbread one. There we go. The cornbread dressing needs a little extra help of a binder. So I've got 2 eggs that I just whisked together with a fork, just until frothy. In goes those guys. Toss, toss, toss. Now we're going to add in our vegetables. The vegetables, I want to add about 1/3 of this, and I'll add about 1/3 to the bread stuffing as well. The leftovers I can freeze and throw in another dish later. So I can, by cooking this now, I've got some ingredients I can use later on. All right, so this is going to come together nicely. Sausage, cornbread, butter, a couple eggs, and our aromatics, our seasoned trinity, onions, celery, and bell pepper. Now I want to add another agent to this to moisten it up, and that's chicken stock. I took just regular store-bought chicken stock, and I added some celery stalks, some onions, and some thyme to it to give it a little more flavor, to enrichen it. So I'm going to start with about 2 cups of that chicken stock. And I'm just going to toss it to make sure everybody's playing together, nice and moist. And we'll get this ready to go in the oven, and when we come back, we'll jump on bread stuffing. Bread stuffing now. I'm going to toss the bread just in those herbes de Provence. What I did was I took about 10 slices of thick cut brioche bread, and I diced it up into large cubes and dried it out in a warm oven at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes, just till you could start to smell that really nice toasty aroma. That was the goal with this guy. So again, about 1/3 of the trinity is going in. And it's nice and moist. The bread is going to drink up all that flavor. Set that to the side. Let's add in, these are just diced apples that I diced up to bring a little crunch and sweetness. If you want to season your breadcrumbs while they're toasting, a little salt and pepper is all you need. Gives them a nice flavor. You can use them as croutons if you got extras left over or something. So definitely season a little salt and pepper on the bread while it's toasting. These are just some broken pecan halves. All I did was snap them into pieces because I wanted them visible. I didn't want tiny little pieces, and I didn't want big pecan halves. So I just took my hand and broke them down a little bit. All right, looking good. Now, let's bring chicken stock back, and that's going to add the moisture to this one. Stuffing. If you want to put it inside the bird, a couple things are important. Make sure that the bird has been thoroughly cleaned inside the cavity. Make sure that any residual little pockets, you get all of that out. Pat it dry before you put the stuffing in. The juices from the turkey or the chicken will drip down into the stuffing and give it some flavor. And probably the most important thing is to make sure that the center of the stuffing is a minimum of 165 degrees. So you got to use a thermometer if you're cooking it in the bird. Go right into the center of it. Make sure you're getting that good reading on a thermometer. You want to make sure that the stuffing has come to a complete 165 degrees before you want to eat it. Okay, so toss this guy together again, much like we did the cornbread. It smells really good. The bread is doing its job. It's drinking up all that flavor. Now, next, we're going to pan it up. I got a plate here, oven safe. I'm just gonna go in, fill this guy up, and once I get this done, I have the cornbread stuffing and the bread ready to go in the oven. Be right back. Okay, so both have been panned up. I've got the cornbread, Southern style cornbread, sausage and sage dressing. I've got classic bread stuffing with apples and pecans seasoned with a little bit of herbs of Provence. They both have been seasoned with the aromatics. The aromatics are onion, celery, and bell pepper. To that I added seasoned salt and a little bit of Creole seasoning. These are going into a 400-degree oven. It's going to take about 20-30 minutes for them to get nice and browned. Once they're browned on the top and they've solidified, they're no longer soft or mushy in the center. You want it to set. Once it's set, it's ready to go. You can go straight to the table and serve it, or let it rest and then serve in 10-15 minutes after a resting period. But really no need, it'll be ready to go. So into the oven, 400 degrees, 30 minutes. We'll come back and we're gonna taste it. Out of the oven are Southern sausage cornbread dressing and our brioche stuffing with apples and pecans. Both done. It took about 30 minutes to get them to this point. They were nice and bubbly when I pulled them out. They're piping hot right now, so I'm not going to taste them, but I'm going to taste them in a few minutes and post in the comments. So be sure to check the comments and you'll see my comments on how they tasted. Remember, feed yourself well, turn on your notifications, and subscribe. Also, next weekend we're going to continue the side trend that we're working on, and then we're going into Turkey 101. And we're going to do the cheesecloth butter soaked wrapped turkey. See you next week.